Ben ritrovati martedì mattina sul floor del New York Stock Exchange, in questo momento indici molto vicini alla parità, con lo Standard & Poor's 500 sempre più vicino alla soglia psicologica dei 1700 punti. Ma ne parliamo con il mio ospite qui sul floor, come vedete è Marco Otto, con un nuovo ruolo, è Managing Director per J. Strikers and Company. Mark, thank you so much for being with us and congratulations for your new role.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be back.
So Mark, let's talk about today. I was saying that the S&P 500 is really approaching the psychological level of the 1700. This morning really tried to reach it, but then we saw the index coming a little bit down. Is a very important level just psychologically or also technically?
I think on both counts, you have to really think of it, particularly anybody who doesn't even really read charts has to think that 1700 psychologically has got to be a level. Our friends at Grey Wolf, Mark Newton, is a market technician. He's saying that we will hit resistance at 1698 to 1700, which we sort of touched upon this morning right there. So beyond that, 1705 is his next resistance point. We're at 1692 now, so 1686 and then 1681 is support going down from here.
Great. So today we're going to monitor it with a lot of attention, even though probably this week, because of all the earnings that are coming, especially, we are really waiting for tonight for Apple after the closing. They will provide us with more hints. After Ben Bernanke last week, already probably closed the chapter. No touch on QE3.
Yeah, so Ben Bernanke actually, he said that the QE3 is not on a set course or a set path. Bloomberg did a survey, and apparently 50% of analysts have indicated that they think that September will start the unwinding.
So 50% is still high.
50% is actually high, especially in this market environment where everything is sort of moving around like a washing machine. So I think that, even with that said, the market's actually taking that in stride. S&P earnings have been good. 72% of them have actually beaten expectations. So I think, in the coming days, a lot of big names are coming out, and we'll have to see how it goes from there. So
even though the revenues, Mark, they still, the companies still have beaten the expectation, but only about 50% of cases. So it's not probably is the same trend that we have noticed in the last few quarters.
Yep. That is a trend we've seen. As long as they don't miss big. That's what people are sort of anticipating. They're going to jump over those low hurdles with the expectations. But again, revenues is another thing. Forward-looking guidance is another thing. However, you'd have to say that thus far, it seems as though earnings have actually benefited the rally instead of being a drag.
Apart from technology, we saw Microsoft and Google last week really miss the expectation, and the shares have been beaten up. Probably Apple, that's why a lot of people are waiting for the earnings tonight. But is it fair to say that from Apple, we don't only want indication from technologies, but also on the consumers' habits? I mean, of course, consumer confidence probably in the next few months could be hit by the more expensive gas and a lot of uncertainty. What do you think?
Actually, yeah, I would have to agree with you. It probably is a good barometer for that case. I mean, obviously, one stock doesn't count for everything. However, that sector for telecommunications, it's becoming more and more difficult as smartphones. There's a lot of patent wars sort of going on between the companies. It's not so much that I'm going to build and develop something new, but if I own the patent, then you can't actually develop it. Also, the pool of people that they have under that particular brand name or another, the growth expectations is getting more and more narrow. We are seeing that very evident in the Chinese telecommunications sector. Actually, a lot of the big telecoms in China are actually down on the year. So it's showing you that it's a highly competitive sector. And of course, this is going to be a big number for everyone to be watching.
Especially a saturated market probably here in the West. Yes. So probably China and then developing market are the new frontiers for these companies.
Absolutely, especially if they're going to actually have agreements going forward, so between East and West. So, yeah.
So Mark, tell me what is going to be the focus of the week. First, we talked about Apple earnings.
Well, as far as macroeconomic data, a lot of like secondary and tertiary data is coming out. On Thursday, though, I think the big number is going to be durable goods. They're forecasting 1.1%, which is actually down from 3.6% last. So that's going to probably be the only macro data that's really going to sway the market for, this week. We had great news out of China last night. Very encouraging. The Chinese premier came out and he put the floor in. So he said 7% GDP this year, and if they're falling below it, they're going to actually stimulate to make sure that they land on it. So we saw the Asian markets rally, in particular the Shanghai Composite, which has taken a beating since February's highs. The Hang Seng, Japan also rallied. It really didn't come across as much as you would think going into Europe and coming into our markets. So I think people are still speculative on what's going to go on with China going forward. Another piece of information out of China that I've read over the last couple of weeks is the Chinese IPO pipeline may be opening up again. So apparently there's approximately 800 companies that would love to IPO. However, Chinese regulators put through some pretty harsh restrictions if you're going to list now to clean up their act, show a bit of transparency. And because of that, only 10%, so about 80 companies, have gotten the green light to actually come over and IPO. So out of that, how many we'll see going forward? We're already halfway through the year. So if we see a dozen, I'd be happy. 2 dozen, I'd be even happier. But I'd be pleasantly surprised at that point. However, that is something that might be coming up on the horizon in the next couple of months. Light in the Box was a stock that I actually IPO'd, the first Chinese stock in about a year. It's performed really well. My firm doesn't have a position in the stock now. Since I switched firms, I could actually talk about it. But hopefully, that will actually be an indication that there is a lot of interest in China. If people do believe that China is actually bottoming out, the premiers have put in that floor. I think people are really going to give a hard look at these Chinese IPOs as they do come across in their performance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Probably it's a story that we're going to follow, as you were saying, for the next couple of months. Now, very briefly, the S&P 500 yesterday touched a record at the closing for the 23rd time this year. Do you think there could be an indication that it might be a pause now in this rally, at least for the summer?
Technical analysts are saying, like my friend Mark Newton, 1700 is that psychological level. It is going to be a point where we're going to hit that resistance. It is healthy for the market to actually have some sort of a pullback. If it does occur, it's a good thing. Obviously, no one wants to see a sell-off. However, you have to keep in mind the fact that we are in the middle of the summer. Volumes are going to be lower. Reaction to news right now, the volatility index is extremely low. However, it could spike up really quickly, especially with lighter volume. Going into the fall, where we're anticipating, if it goes on like years have in the past, typically volume will pick up in the fall going into the later part of the year. So we are in that level where many people are on vacation. Any news that comes out could easily spike some volatility, especially with the volumes where they are.
Steep reaction.
Yeah.
We'll see. Thank you very much, Mark, for being with us.
Thank you.
E grazie a voi per l'attenzione e a domani.